everyone, it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet granny stripes. Granny stripes and squares and triangles are some of my most favorite things to crochet. They're a great way to learn some basic stitches and also to use up some of your scrap yarn. You can do one row of each color like I did here. And they really just, I think this stitch and this type of pattern just really shows the yarn and the colors really beautifully. So let's get started. For our Granny Stripes tutorial, I'm going to be using Lion Brand's wool spun and a 6.5 millimeter K crochet hook. However, you can use any yarn or hook you like for this pattern. When you're selecting your yarn, just look at the yarn label for the recommended hook size for your particular yarn. You'll also need a pair of scissors when we transition from color to trim the ends. And when you're done, you'll also want to weave your ends in with a tapestry needle. So let's get started. Our Granny Stripe sequence has a multiple of 3 plus 2. And what that means is when you're making your starting chain, in order to get the width that you like for your Granny Stripe piece that you'll be making, you'll want to work a multiple of 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, and however many sets of 3 you like, and then you'll add 2 more chains onto that. So we're going to do a starting chain of 14. And if we break that down, that's 3, 6, 9, 12, and then adding 2 more onto that makes 14, okay? So what we're going to do is take your hook and make a slip knot on the hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with a crochet hook, bring up the loop, and then tighten. Okay, so like I said before, we're going to do a starting chain of 14. That's 12, and then adding the 2 more to make 14, okay? So to make a chain, wrap yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So this is our starting chain, and you don't want it to be too tight. And if you're having trouble, some people have trouble with their starting chain being tight, just go up a hook size or 2, make your starting chain, and then switch back to the hook size that you originally wanted to use. And that's a helpful little tip if your starting chain is a little bit tight. So let's begin row 1. This is also kind of like the foundation row. This is going to be single crochets to kind of get us started. In the second chain from the hook, so this loop here does not count. So we're going to count 1, 2. In this chain here, the second chain from the hook, we're going to work a single crochet stitch. Insert the hook into the chain and bring up a loop. Wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through both loops. That's the single crochet. Next, we'll work a single crochet in each chain all the way across. And this will set up a nice, neat, sturdy kind of row for us to work our granny stripes onto. Okay, so we're just going to continue all the way across with our single crochet stitches. Now we are going to be working multicolored stripes for this. I'm going to stick with the orange for this row and the next, just to show you how it looks. Okay, again, we're just working a single crochet in each chain all the way across. Now if you notice mine is curling a little bit, that's perfectly fine. Once we start putting some rows into this, it will straighten itself out. Okay, so I'm just this very last chain, we're just working a single crochet right into that. Okay, I'm going to stick with the yarn just for the next row. The orange yarn just for the next row also. Okay, so let's work row 2. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to get our little tail out of the way here. We'll weave that in later. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3, and turn our work. This chain that we just made counts as one of the double crochets of our row. Okay? So in this very first stitch, right here, right up against where you made this chain, this very first little hole that you see, you're going to work a double crochet in that very first stitch, okay? So to make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around your hook, insert your hook into that very first stitch, and bring up a loop. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops on your hook. Okay? All right, let's get a little bit more yarn. We're going to continue across. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to skip 2 stitches. So these next 2 little holes that you see at the top, 1, 2, we're going to skip those 2. And in the stitch after that, we're going to work 3 double crochets all in that same stitch. Okay, so 1, 2, 2, and 3. 3 double crochets all in that same stitch. Now, these can also be referred to as a double crochet cluster because it's kind of a grouping of stitches that you'll see. That iconic grouping of 3 double crochets that you see in granny squares as well. Okay? Next, we're going to continue the same thing across. So skip the next 2 stitches, and in the stitch after that, work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, you can start to see this granny pattern is emerging already. Okay, so let's skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and in the stitch after that, work 3 more double crochets, all in that same stitch. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, then we're going to repeat what we've been repeating, and we're now at the last 3 stitches. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to skip 2, and then in that very last stitch that you see, sometimes it gets a little smushed there on the end, but that's okay. In that very last stitch, we're only going to work 2 double crochets into that. So 1 and 2. Okay, so our next row is complete. So now I'm going to show you how to switch colors, and then we're going to proceed on to the next row, and I'm going to show you how to work into that row as well. Okay, we're going to switch to this pretty blue color I have here. So what I want to do is just cut the yarn and fasten off. Now, there's lots of ways you can join a new color. If you have a preferred method, go ahead and do that. I like to just tie it on, but you know, there's other ways of doing it if you prefer that way. So what we're going to do, this very last stitch that we worked, insert your hook into that stitch, and then bring the new yarn through, just like that, and tie it right on. A nice, neat, secure knot. Okay, so now we're ready to work the next row. We can just get these tails out of the way for now. We can weave those in later, or you can weave them in as you go along. It's totally up to you. Okay, so next we're gonna reinsert our hook back into that stitch and go ahead and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then we're gonna turn our work. Again, you can just get these little tails out of the way for now. Okay, so this first space that we come to in between these groupings that we've created, so this is our first space, we're going to work 3 double crochets. So right into this space this time and not the stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so it'll look kind of like that, working it right into that space. Let's slide this yarn back a little bit. There we go. Okay, we're going to hop over to the next space in between these 2, like I referred to them as clusters, in between these 2 clusters. That space, that decorative hole that we've created. So work 3 double crochets right into that space. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, just like that. Again, next space, do the same thing, 3 double crochet. Now, you may have started with a different starting chain multiple as me, and you'll be working more or less of these across. But it's all the same if you follow that that little multiple mathematical formula at the beginning, okay? So then we're just going to keep going across. We are at the last little space here. Now this cluster isn't as big as this one, but it's still a space we need to work into. So work 3 double crochets into that space as well. 1, 2, and 3. Just like that. It's looking very pretty. The colors are working nicely together. Okay, so to finish off our row, we're going to locate, so this is the turning chain right here at the end that we did a chain 3 and turned our work. So at the top chain of that turning chain, we're going to work a double crochet right into that top chain. Okay, so just insert your hook into that top chain. You might have to wiggle it a little bit, that's okay. And just like that, okay? So our next row is complete. Now you can stick to the same color for all of this. I like to switch colors when I'm doing granny stripes and squares and triangles and such because it just looks so pretty together. So I'm just going to cut my blue and fasten off. Okay, so now we're ready to work the next row. All right, so I think we're going to go with the pink this time. This is actually more of an orchid color. I think it is actually called orchid. So we're going to get these other colors out of the way. Okay, so let's work the next row. Okay, so we're just going to tie the new yarn on the same way we did in the previous row. Just bring the new yarn through and just tie it right on. Nice, neat, secure knot. We can weave all this in later. Again, if you have a preferred method of joining your yarn, definitely do that. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's really just a matter of preference here. Okay, so we have our orchid and we've tied it on. So what we're going to do is reach back in there, bring up a loop and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now let's turn our work. Okay, so this little space here that we have at the beginning of our row, we're going to work a double crochet into that first little space. So work a double crochet into that space, okay? Then we're going to do the same thing we did in the previous row. This next space that we come to in between these 2 double crochet clusters, work 3 double crochets. Same way we did in the previous row. So 1, 2, whoops, let's try that again. 2, and 3. Just like that. The colors are looking very pretty. Okay, hop over to the next space in between the clusters and work 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, get that straightened out. Next space here, work 3 double crochet, same thing. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now to finish off the row for this row, this last space here, see this was our turning chain. We have a cluster and it's created a space. We're going to work just 2 double crochets into that space. So 1 and 2. Okay, and this is what we have so far. It looks lovely. Okay, so let's cut the yarn and fasten off. We're going to switch colors again. Again, if you want to stick to your color, that's fine. Any way you like to work it. Okay, so we haven't done the green yet. Let's grab this green yarn here. I believe this is called avocado. Okay, so to work our next row, our final row of the sequence, what we're going to do is join the yarn the same way we did before. So in that last little stitch there, and just tie a nice neat knot to secure that color right on there. Okay. All right, we'll just get our tails out of the way for now. So what we're going to do is reinsert the hook back in there and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then we're going to turn our work. Okay? Next, we're going to work 3 double crochets in each space all the way across. Okay? So that first space, 1, 2, and 3. You can see how that looks. Okay? Next space we come to, 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Just like that. And then the next space, same thing, 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And the last space we come to, do the same thing. 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now to finish off the row, this turning chain again that we created from the previous row, we're going to work just 1 double crochet into the top chain of that turning chain that we created. Okay? So to continue with your granny stripes and create a full-on project, let's cut our yarn and fasten off so we're not connected here. Let's fasten off. We've made our little swatch. We can get our yarn out of the way. So to continue, this purple row we did was row 4. This green row we did was row 5 of our work. So we did 1, the first single crochet row was 1. This first granny stripe in orange was row 2. This blue row was row 3. This orchid row was row 4. And this green row is row 5. So to continue your project as long and as wide and as tall as you want it to be, you're going to work rows 4 and 5 over and over and over and over again until your granny stripe project is as large as you would like it to be. Okay? So that's all. That's how you crochet a granny stripe. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again.